Yep, these days I'm with Renovo, and I've got a quiet little hospital in North Texas. Okay, so let's see. Hang on, come on. All right, which one? This is all. It's all complicated. There we go. There we go. Okay, so nice North Texas, northeast of Dallas. Nice little 188 bed hospital. Okay, most of you will know Wayne Shockey, and Wayne said, "Hey, I've got 3 hospitals. One's in Ohio, one's in Minneapolis, one is in Texas." I said, "Which one pays the most?" "Well, they're all the same." "Well, I'm going to Texas." So, and 188 beds. We got 360,000 square feet. 5 urgent care centers. They're growing like a fairway full of crabgrass, and they're constantly expanding their footprint everywhere. And that's what they're finding profitable is imaging centers, urgent care, and so forth. And we got 16 beds in ICU. But from this tiny little footprint, they literally have the same numbers as a 450 bed hospital. But the work tempo is brisk. Okay, we have all the normal stuff, Da Vinci's, the Stryker version, the Mako robotic. We've got cath lab. We do not have open heart. We are literally a county hospital in a relatively poor county, so we don't have open heart or any of the big stuff like that. Imaging centers, we've got the full imaging. We don't have PET CT, but we do have everything else. So, and this is, I was going to take and put them on the, my technicians on the cover of the El Loco album, but I thought, nah, maybe not. So Rachel Chanot, she's my imaging person. Bradley, he just got bumped to Tech 3. Thomas is my young guy. And of course, Dr. Evil. Okay, so it sounds like a sweet little deal, which it is. So what's the problem? It's like, well, we have a tiny little hospital with a very thin budget. So to make things interesting, we have almost zero redundancy in our medical equipment inventory. If something breaks, we can't just grab another one and wait for whoever to come in and work on it. So if there isn't one, we have to figure out what to do to get this back online as quick as we can. Anything from IV pumps to imaging, when something goes down, it is a priority. Okay. Our economic conditions right now, everybody feels this at the gas pump and at the grocery store, and the hospitals feel it too. Let's just say economic conditions are unsettled. Healthcare organizations, with a few exceptions, are operating with less funding for capital purchases this year than was originally planned. About half the hospitals out there are in a heck of a capital crunch. It is what it is. And as operations and support, we we do what we can. Okay. This is where things can really get challenging for us in HTM. Medical equipment does not improve with age, like fine wine. Beautiful women, it does not improve with age. Parts cost more. Service contracts cost more. You must have a purchase order number before OEMs will even talk to you with tech support to make their own machine function again. And as I tell them, you know, the less downtime your equipment has, the better it looks. Help me out here. Okay, technical expertise is leaving the field due to the aging of our community, with many retiring. Parts and accessories are becoming scarce for anything more than 8 years old. And so that's one of the great things of why we're here at MD Expo, is to build our network. And it's like, okay, our normal company doesn't have it, Part Source doesn't have it, our backup at All Parts doesn't have it. Who was that guy we saw there at MD Expo? Yeah, let's call him. So with this in mind, I wanted to share some of my budget stretching methods of making your equipment as good as it can be, since you may be owning it a lot longer than you thought. And so thinking back to when we were younger, like me, Ryan, Dan, back when we were in high school, you'd go and save up and get yourself a car for 12, 1,500 bucks. And then you get a few specific parts, and over a long weekend, you and your friends put those together. And by the time you went back to school on Monday or Tuesday, you had a car that could really give the highway patrol helicopters a bad time. Okay, this is kind of the medical equipment version of that, but got to remember, we cannot modify equipment. It all has to be OEM approved on what we do. So some of our considerations for how much effort and money to put into these units. How many years does this platform have before the end of OEM support? Can we get third-party support? We've all done this. You know, it's something that we've got and we're stuck with it, but the OEM won't come out and work on it because they want you to buy another one. So let's say Albert Negron at Medical Equipment Doctor out there, his guys. Here, I've got a wonderful example of this from Hunt. They called me up and said, hey, we've got a NIM that needs a PM. And I'm like, what's a NIM? Never heard of this thing. And it's a big deal in the OR behind the red line. And if it's more than 8 years old, Medtronic will not work on this. They want you to buy a new one. New one's $50,000. My surgery director and CFO are about to have a heart attack. And I'm just like, okay, let me make a couple of calls and see what we can do. So I call up, and I knew Albert from when he was at Tenacor. And so I call up and say, hey, can you guys work on this? And it's like, he's like, I've heard of them. Yeah, send it out. Let's see what we can do. The PM was $395, effectively saving my hospital $49,605 bucks. They were really happy about that. And so I tell this to everybody, make the most of being here and all of our sponsors and all of our vendors and everything, and take home everything you can, because this is someday is going to get your bacon out of the fire. Okay, can this platform handle current patient throughput? Is it working fine? Is it just can't cut the mustard anymore? Does it have the image resolution needed for the studies being ordered by our healthcare providers? So get out, talk to your docs, talk to the department heads and everybody. Hey, is this machine here, are you trying to replace it because it just can't keep up anymore, or because it's old, or because you like a better color? Why do you want to replace this? And are there any software updates that would improve the system's performance? Okay, so don't be afraid to look into upgrades for your imaging systems. A new detector plate, and we just did this, new detector plate for a rad-only X-ray room can do wonders for image resolution. This literally happened about my 5th or 6th week on site, okay? Everybody here knows Al Moretti from, okay, Uncle Al, anyway. So a detector got dropped by a student, and it broke it so bad where we had wires sticking out. And Al's there for a visit, and I've known him for years. I'm like, hey, Al, can we go ahead and do something here other than just replacing the plate? And that's $45,000. So we got on the horn with AGFA, and for $10,000 less, they got a complete new install. It was the plate, the transmission, everything, the whole system. Huge improvement in the resolution on the images. $10,000 less. Beautiful. And that went into a Bucky Diagnost Philips system, which has a door right into our emergency room. This is trauma 1. And so, yeah, they were really happy to see better pictures in that room. Plus, we're going to get that much more life out of this before we have to replace it. So as long as that room can make X-ray and hold light to field, we're good. Okay. And we also had, and one of our imaging one of our imaging centers, the same thing, and we did the same thing there, saved $10,000 over buying a new Konica plate. And we have yet a third one heard about that. Hey, if we drop ours, can we get a free one too? No, bad, no. So yeah, we told them, yeah, that if that happens, the word premeditated is going to start to fly around the courtroom. So don't do that. And but yeah, and also greatly because it's faster than the old technology, and so they can shoot, you know, over the course of a day, they can do more patient throughput through that room. And it was for less money. You've got to love it. Here we go. Okay, one of the biggest bang for the buck we've had for improving imaging system performance, regardless of modality, can actually be system applications training. Are the technicians currently using the latest apps for the studies they are performing for the units they are using? Yes, we just had this from technicians that we just hired. It was a case of, we've got bad pictures, this is no good, got to buy another one. And what it was they had come from another place that used a different platform from a different manufacturer, but they were using the applications from the old machine onto the new one, and the images were horrible. And so, yeah, it was literally, we had some credits left over. We brought in the applications training and got them shooting with the techniques that they should be using on those ultrasounds. Pictures were beautiful, and it was operator error, but we don't want to call it that. So, and software updates and corresponding applications training can give you marked improvements in your imaging quality due to improved image processing capabilities and improved procedures working together. And let's go to the next. Okay, ultrasound. One of the biggest things to remember, and I know not everybody has a background with imaging, and so one of the things to remember about your ultrasounds that you have under contract is that many current OEM specifications for ultrasound do not require PMs. If it's under contract with the OEM, you're not getting a PM. They literally changed it so they wouldn't have to do that. Okay, yeah. Well, if it's not required, unless you're doing an AEM and where you require it and you have like a general procedure, instead of following the OEM, then yeah, then you would. And what we're doing is, I have Rachel, my imaging technician, and so what we do is she will do a general PM on it, you know, vacuum out the dust bunnies, and also take a ultrasound phantom and QC all the probes. And this hadn't been done. We didn't have a dedicated imaging person for about 3 years. And so a lot of things would fall through the cracks. And so she's going through, I told her when she was hired, I don't want break fix. I want a comprehensive program. I want this stuff working, staying working, not breaking, and the director and all the techs being happy because this stuff works and they're making money. Those were her marching orders. And so we put together PMs, and every one of the probes got QC'd, every which way you can do it. Anything that wouldn't make it got sent out, and a whole bunch of them went to Probo, and they got repaired. We have 17 ultrasounds. They had enough money to buy 2. So there's 15 boxes that we're going to have for at least another 12 to 18 months. So that's what we were doing. We had a problem with applications. We had a problem with probes not meeting spec. And so we sent the probes out and everything. And each one of them, each probe, I think, was like $1,800 to $2,000, somewhere in there. And so these machines now, let's say you repair 1 probe a piece for all 15. And now they are performing as good as they ever have. And so until we can get them replaced, this is as good as it can be for that platform. And we've got, the 9Es, some 10s, some Epics. We've got all kinds of stuff, but every one of them is now up to as good as it can get until we get some more money. Okay, let's see. Vacuum out the dust bunnies, reduce problems caused by heat, make sure the circuit boards are securely seated. Check connections, check your cables and probes for insulation and shielding damage. And when I got into medicine back, up hills both ways in the snow, ultrasounds didn't go anywhere. They brought the patients to the ultrasound. Now ultrasounds go everywhere. And on elevators, off elevators, bumpity, bumpity, bump, and this can cause all kinds of little intermittent problems. They go everywhere now, and ultrasounds go in the rooms daily basis, being bumped and bounced and everywhere else, induce problems over time. So in your PM procedure, add in, make sure everything is seated, all the cables, all the Jones plugs, all the circuit boards. Take you 10 minutes, but it will definitely pay in benefits for all those little gremlins. Okay, next place to look, ultrasound probes. Has the soft scanning surface of the probe been damaged? Any break in the physical continuity of the probe surface will induce image artifact. Ultrasound crystals will degrade over time. And I've got a very specific case study coming up on this very thing. You can QC your probes, check for image continuity, look for dropout in your image field, especially when you're moving your probe over the phantom. Make sure the picture stays there as you move. Watch for what moves and what does not in the image field as you move your probe. Getting ultrasound probes repaired is relatively inexpensive compared to the improvement that you will get. There are numerous independent companies servicing imaging and specifically ultrasound probes. And last but not least, make sure you have current backups to your ultrasound imaging operating system. Every time you work on one of those, take it, put it on a thumb drive every time, because that way you don't have to recreate every little improvement there's been over time. If anything happens, and Murphy will come along for the ride, and that way you don't take a huge loss and have to rebuild everything, like losing a hard drive and suddenly you just lost all your pictures on your home computer. Okay, nothing's going to ruin your day as quickly as having to rebuild your ultrasound operating system. Okay, here's my case study on things that can and cannot go, that can go wrong with an ultrasound. This is a Sonosite. It's one of the newer models. This is Jenny. She's my head of director of ICU, Rachel. And this is Monica, who was hired from Baylor Scott & White. I don't know how many of your facilities have been doing this for a while, but Monica wasn't, oh yeah. Well, this gets even better. She was an expert in ultrasound IV placement. I've been doing a couple of corporate gigs. I hadn't heard of this, where they take one of these with a very specific set of software and a very specific probe, and you put it on their arm, and you see the huge pipes, and just put the IV right in. I was like, wow, this is cool. So she is Master Yoda of that procedure for my facility. And so they got the probe, they got the software. And one of the first things that happened when they turned everybody loose with it was somebody put a needle through that nice soft rubber window, put the needle right through it. So that did not, of course, not go over well. Put it right through the acoustic lens. So the director of ICU came back and said, hey, we've got another Sonosite. Could you build one that can go out to all the other floors so they can borrow that without using our good one? Okay. Well, so we looked into that, and no problem, right? And so the first thing was, well, can we take the probe off of this one and put on that one? Well, that defeats the purpose because you got the good machine with the good probe. And so we went and looked, and we could get, for the one we were gonna go ahead and kind of modernize, we could get the same probe array and everything, and that upgrade was $6,500 instead of $65,000 for another brand new sonosite, okay? And we got there. The first thing that happened, of course, the software won't work with that platform and that probe. It's like, oh man. So Rachel's on the horn with Sonosite, and turns out if they went back one generation on the software, it would work. And so then we had the eureka moment. The whole thing came together. We rolled it down. This is not the same picture, but we rolled it down. One of the ICU nurses put a little water on her wrist, put the probe right there, and there was the great big pipes. And it's like, oh, yeah, I love it when the plan comes together. And so now they have 2 units. One can travel around to all the others, and one with the really good resolution stays in ICU and cath lab, and which are right next to each other. And so we had we're definitely calling that one a win. Okay, this is another of my strategies I've come up with. Refurb in place. Past years, I was at a facility under contract with a major OEM. Contract covered labor. They purchased their own parts. This was for CHS back when they had about 15 of their hospitals outsourced. And in this hospital, it's about 450, 470 bed. They had a fleet of 10 operating tables that were in, you know, they had just received like the standard little PM and everything an OR table gets. And so there was no funding for their replacement. So I contacted my leadership, Phillips, and I said, hey, I've got an idea. These tables really need some help. And so, these were, I think, Mackay tables, and they had a dealer network. We had a dealer, you know, within 70 miles. And so what he would do is he would bring us a loaner, take those, go ahead, and the hospital would pay for the parts. I would pay for the labor, and we would refurb our own stuff and then get it back. That's why I call it refurb in place. It's our stuff. And so they agreed, and I brought the idea up to the surgery department. And they were in full support of the idea because their tables would be refurbed to new condition for way less money. And this was still a current model that they could build. If they were going to buy something else, they'd get the same one. So there's no advantage with going new. They made a list of everything they wanted. We want new tabletops. We want new pads. We want new this. We want new that. And then they added it up, and it was about 15,000 or more per table. And then they said, yeah, okay, this stuff's fine. And we did replace a few of the pieces of the different tops because the corners were broken off, things like that. But over the next 3 months, all those tables were serviced and returned one at a time for an average cost of about $2,800. And it was, and then they were, and remember this phrase, okay? When you're dealing with administration, especially the CFO, remember this phrase. It is off the capital list for this many years, 3 years, 8 years. It's a great way of talking them into parting with a little bit of money. It's like, hey, if we do this little thing, it's going to take it off the capital list for 4 years. You've got their attention, believe me. So for this case, it was off the capital list for 8 more years because this was a current model and it could still be supported. Okay. Okay, another place that works well is IV pumps. If you have a few hundred, at least, IV pumps, there will be some that break constantly. Compare the cost of refurbing the worst of your own existing IV pumps versus the cost of purchasing used pumps or new from the OEM. Don't forget, your tech's labor is not free. Your techs cost you 60, 80 bucks an hour with benefits and everything else. So when you start to put in, okay, we always have to replace parts in this thing. and it's taking hours and hours and hours. It's literally cheaper to send it out, have somebody else refurb it with a warranty, with new parts, get it back, hopefully take care of all those problems you've got. Okay, patching together a troublesome IV pump is going to be way more expensive than just the cost of the parts, and or replacing system components. You also have the option of replacing one or two pieces of a system from a used third-party company in our industry. Hospitals that would not consider utilizing used or refurbished equipment in the past may soften on their stance due to our economic reality. Let's say you've got monitoring in a 30-bed ICU wing, okay? And they're getting older, and there's a couple of the bedsides act up, intermittent. They'll drive you nuts trying to find this stuff. So you can get a hold of, and if you want the name of the company, I'll tell you, but I know people that run a company that, like, say you get new ICU monitoring, they'll buy the old stuff, and they have a national footprint. And they can get you almost anything with a little bit of notice. Yeah, they can get you a refurb Hannah table. They're pretty good. And so you've got 30, a couple of them don't work like they should. Call them up, get a couple of these, make sure it has the same software version, put them in. ICU monitoring is off of the capital list for 3 or 4 years. So instead of $750,000 to $2 million, you took care of their problem for 12 or 15 grand. So yeah, these are completely doable. And if they ask you, do you think this is going to work? I said, if it doesn't work, you think I want to have that conversation with you? It'll work. And so, plus what we're getting has a warranty on it. And so, okay, replace components. Example I can give, a previous facility of mine had a fetal monitoring system that was not replaced as scheduled. I went up, talked to the staff, and I said, hey, on this, does this do what you need? Are there new clinical features that you don't have? Why does this one need to be replaced? Do everything, and you guys like it? And they said, hey, we do like it, does everything we need, but we need bigger displays. And the new one has bigger displays. I'm like, wait a minute, you just need a bigger display, that's it? So yeah, we sourced them out, no problem. We put those on. We made that upgrade for under $2,000 for 2 great big ones, because that we won't say where, but the nurses like to lean back in their chairs and look across the hallway at the big screens that they had on the core metrics. Well, the one from Hewlett Packard had a little screen. They didn't like that. They want a big screen so they could lean back against the wall in their chair and watch the fetal rhythms. Okay, it'll work for me. So that's what we did. We upgraded that, and the magic words again, it's off the capital list. All right, so, and there will be old stuff, as I call it, keeping the museum pieces going. You will have to service equipment that is past the end of support from the OEM. No question about it. This stuff is going to happen. This is an area of servicing where 3 strikes are not out, and the age and treachery of your technicians will overcome youth and exuberance of the salespeople every time. All of us here know that you can still support these units for years by working with third-party parts suppliers. However, not everyone may be aware that many of these units are not actually manufactured by the OEM that sold them to you. I had this with OR lights. It was actually made by another company, and we found out that that model is still being manufactured by the same original manufacturer, not the one with the logo on it, as a current model, and we could get the parts for that without a problem. Fixed it for like $34. You can find original manufacturers with a little time on Google using the model number or other designators that you can find on there. Also, try to Google the part numbers out of the service manual. This is a great way to find who is actually manufacturing this stuff. If you find numerous parts for that unit, all manufactured by the same company that is not the OEM you bought the unit from, you're on the right trail. You can also look inside the unit with the covers off for manufacturer's trademarks or in the service manual, which will sometimes be original service manual with a new OEM logo right on it. We had the same thing in Armed Forces Biomed. We had the schematics and everything, had the Armed Forces logos on it. Yeah, it was from the OEM. So the same principle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, see, it has to be manufactured. Well, a lot of the third-party parts were manufactured by the OEM, and it was a case of they're carrying somebody else's parts. They're not. They could be used. It depends on how old the machine is. They could be used parts. They could be refurb parts and stuff like that. But you got to remember, with the Safe Medical Device Act of 1990, you can't just make stuff work anymore. It's got to literally be that part as a direct replacement. And so, but yeah, it's you know, if you can't get it through Parts Source, you can't get it through All Parts. And some of the specialty vendors we have here, take your part number and go out on Google and put this part number and then for sale and see where you can find it there. You might be able to find whoever's got one. And because there's not a lot of manufacturers, like usually it's whoever built it and maybe whoever's carrying it will have those OEM parts. And so you can go from there. Anybody else have anything to throw out? Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're at Piedmont, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've only been there for 13 months, but I was at several other places during COVID, and we had to mask up. We had to wear all the PPE depending on the area, and there were certain areas like, say, negative pressure COVID rooms and so forth. We did not venture in there unless it was literally too big to move. They would bring stuff out, but oh, I gotcha. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only been in this place for 13 months. So yeah, it's kind of a step back and oh, no kidding. And it's so weird having time on a weekend. Yeah, sure. Within Renovo we do, yeah. And it's put together by our QC department, and it's they give me the list of what it is, what the frequency should be, and then I take that to the EOC committee, explain it to them, and then they put the stamp on it, and then we do what we need to do. And we also, there's a few things that we've identified that actually need to be done more than a little more often, because it alleviates problems. Mm-hmm. Or the IV pumps we've got, I think it says replace the batteries every 2 years. They start acting up at 11 and a half months all the time, no matter who you're from, UASA, Interstate Batteries, and so forth. So yeah, on that, we literally do that every year. And the hospital agrees with us because they would rather have the pumps work than try to, because you will, as they act up, you will replace them. And then it's, you know, they've got pumps down and everything. It's way better to just go ahead, have it scheduled and do it. Yeah. Oh, you mean like the upgrades and software and thing like that? Yeah, because I mean, everything we do is tracked in the CMMS. And so you can see, you know, you can track month by month, okay, all the complaints, let's say an ultrasound, imaging problem, barber pole, artifact, this, that, and then here, and then you have nothing but crickets afterwards. But if it still keeps going, yeah, it's like we've just done this one and it's still acting up. Okay, did we get a bad part or did we not find it? Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Oh yeah, because that was when we had to do that there at Hunt because we couldn't get them. And I was first thing was like, okay, you're kidding me. We can't get batteries for right. We can't get defibrillator batteries, and we can extend them. Oh, this, and I'm going, oh, this just is not a good idea. But it's what we had, and it was the entire industry, and it was approved by FDA. So we were not exactly, breaking the law. We were just real uncomfortable with that idea. Yeah, go ahead, Lonnie. Yeah. Yeah, I came into Hunt March 6th of last year. My 5th week was Joint Commission was on board, and so me being me, I called up our QC department. Hey, Ernie, the life health guy says he wants this, 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 and I don't know how to use our CMMS yet. And so I said, hey, can you help me out here? So about an hour and a half later, all of it shows up in my email, and it all turned out well. It was the life health guy, the scariest one, and my liaison, because we're contracted, my liaison's contracted, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna meet you here at this time in my big conference room, and bring all your technicians. He wants to talk to them too. My technicians are terrified. Oh yeah, and so we get there. I walk in. He looks over at me. Hey, haven't I worked with you before? I don't know, probably. But everything was going so well, and I'm rolling him through all the data and everything, and he literally said, hey, can you at least let me ask the question before you answer it? Oh, okay, I'll go along with the plan. So it worked out, but the AEM is actually Joint Commission's preferred model instead of instead of the 80s where everything gets a PM whether it needs a PM or not, because that's AEM can be a lot, you can't use it to replace FTEs, but you can make the most of your time. Hmm. But yeah, what's that? Okay. Oh yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I haven't had a DNV hospital yet. My yeah, right. Yeah, my friend Jim Barnhill, if I ever have a question about DNV, he's had at least 2 or 3. So I just call him. Hey Jim, what's this? Thankfully, it's all been Joint Commission, and I haven't had to learn anything new quite yet. Okay, so this is kind of a quick one this time. So as I tell lots of young managers and directors when I'm being Uncle John, get out and talk to your stakeholders. Find out what their needs are, their future desires. Budgets are tight, but there is no reason not to do what you can to make their conditions as good as they can be. Offer to work with the Capital Request Committee and the Chief Operating Officer and the CFO for what units are coming up on their end of support dates, which units can be supported past the end of the support date, which models have a hard stop in their service life and will need to be replaced no further than here. This is golden information that they need. Okay, do not make illegal modifications. Stay within standard practices and procedures. There will be opportunities to pull a rabbit out of the hat one more time to dramatically help your facility or organization maximize their equipment usage and manage expenses. And this is my 4th one. And before I was talking about what is our main job in health technology management, and everybody, fix equipment. I said, no. And I said, it came down to what is our top responsibility? Patient safety. Number 2, and they said, fix equipment. No. contain expenses. We do that by fixing it ourselves, managing the fleet of equipment, you know, managing contracts and everything to get them the biggest bang for the buck. And fixing equipment is just a small chunk of a big patchwork quilt of what we do. And okay, so anybody wants to, I'm on LinkedIn. You can contact me there, and I won't give you my cell number, but but anyway, so yeah, the biggest thing we can do is share information. And so you can always get a hold of me and say, hey, we got Joint Commission coming up. Didn't you just have that like 4 months ago? What were they looking for? Yeah, they were doing this, 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 and this. You know, sharing information is not cheating. That is making the most of your resources.